Welcome back, everyone. We will now reconvene the BBG open meeting. As the board knows, one of the most important steps we have taken to better coordinate BBG's global posture has been CEO Lansing's decision to convene, with the board's strong approval, regular meetings of our 5 network heads. These meetings are held under the framework of U.S. International Media Coordinating Committee, or ICC, as authorized under the International Broadcasting Act, and aim to increase communication and coordination across BBG's independent networks. The ICC has proved to be a helpful tool on a number of issues, not the least of which was the coordinated drafting of the FY 2017 BBG budget. The board will now hear from the assembled network heads on how the ICC has enhanced coordination efforts. CEO John Lansing will lightly moderate. John, please begin.
Thank you, Governor Kempner. So as you recall, we began the year 6 months ago with our 5 strategic pillars. And I'd like to briefly go over those 5 pillars again. The first is a rapid but market-driven shift to digital distribution over traditional media. The second is what we're going to talk about today, and that's enhancing the strategic cooperation between the entities. Third is increasing the curation and acquisition of content so that we can use our original content to be more impactful and unique. Fourth is targeting our resources to key spheres of influence around the world, including countering violent extremism, the Russian periphery, the China periphery, Iran, and Cuba. And then the 5th strategic pillar, and perhaps the most important, is to ensure that we're measuring our success by the impact we're having in those spheres, not just in the audiences we reach. So today, we're going to talk about the second pillar, but through the second pillar, the ICC will discuss all 5 of the strategic pillars and how they're working cooperatively to make those pillars come to life. Now, I know you know the entity heads, but I thought I'd introduce them for those that don't. On my left is Brian Conniff, president of Middle East Broadcasting Network. Next to him is Nenad Paik, the acting president of RFERL. Keilu Chow, the acting president of Voice of America. Malule Gonzalez, the president of the Office of Cuba Broadcasting. And Libby Liu, the president of Radio Free Asia. So, Brian, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you, John. This afternoon, I'd like to say a few words about the network's growing shift to digital. And as I talk, we'll be playing a looping video that will show the diverse properties and look of our 5 networks' online presence. Access to the internet is growing exponentially around the globe. A recent Facebook study found that 3.2 billion people were now online. But it also found that 4.1 billion are still not online. So a bit of caution, despite the revolution in the way people are now consuming news, TV and radio remain important players in the media market. In fact, in the Middle East and North Africa, research shows that over 90% of the adults use TV as their primary means of obtaining news and information. So at this point of the digital transformation, digital media is not so much replacing traditional media, but rather it is complementing what people have used in the past. But digital platforms are offering a new opportunity to go beyond the passive one-way transfer of information to now allow our audiences to engage and connect the second and third legs of the BBG mission. Initially, MBN sought to use websites as a way to communicate news and information. But we soon discovered that social media, and specifically Facebook, are the preferred platforms that the digital audience would like to use. We've seen this trend around the world. Countries like China and Cuba are finding this is a new avenue, a new platform for them to reach their audiences, especially using sensitive and often censored content. In fact, in the Middle East, over 70% of those connected to the internet use Facebook regularly. While in Cuba, 90% of online users access Facebook. They use it to communicate with their friends and families, share information, consume news, and engage on issues important to their lives. So many, if not all of our entities, our networks, are stressing Facebook as a critical way to get news and information to our audiences. In fact, Al-Hur's Facebook page has nearly 7 million followers, and Radio Sawa has over 6 million followers. In 2014, RFA's Kamar Facebook page has, since 2014, has shown explosive growth with over 2 million followers, a tenfold increase in a country where only 5 million people are online. And in January alone, RFE has actively engaged by posting comments, showing likes and sharing stories on their Facebook page. But it's not just Facebook. All of the broadcast networks are also using the other social media platforms we know about: Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, and Telegram. But analytics don't tell the whole story. What's most important is what is being distributed, what is the content, and what is the impact it's having on the audience. Based on the feedback we've received, we've all learned that the audience prefers content that is visual, that is short, and is compelling as a story. They don't just want data thrown at them. Our Facebook pages strive to be conversational in nature, allowing the audience to engage with comments. We have calls to action. We invite their participation, and the audiences are responding to this. For example, a recent video produced for Al-Hur's Facebook page was on the topic of Islamic scholarship and how it contradicts ISIS ideology. A difficult message to put across, but using visuals, we were able to receive over 300,000 views in a matter of days. Video is the most engaged aspect of what is on the Facebook platform. In August 2015, our NBN's Facebook page had 2 million video views. In January of this year, it had grown to 54 million. All of our other entities have seen the same growth in a very short period of time. Facebook Live video streams are now a new tool that all the entities are using to further engage and enrich the audience's experience. VOA's Kamar service recently used Facebook Live for an interview with the leader of an opposition party. It received 250,000 views, 20,000 likes, and 4,000 comments. This is very significant numbers for a country like Cambodia. Just this morning, MBN's digital team had a Facebook Live out of Baghdad, where we interviewed protesters who were calling for the government to reform and pushing for the needs of the people. It was viewed by more than 15,000 people with 10,000 comments, including those that thanked MBN for being the voice of the Iraqi people. This is also seen in MBN's new Raise Your Voice campaign on our Facebook page, which in a period of 6 months has shown significant growth in terms of comments, videos, fans, and all the other indicators like video views. So, John, that's a quick overview of what all the networks are doing in the digital space.
Thank you, Brian. I know you all work together through the ICC to share best practices. Kay-Lou, talk about some of the best practices through VOA.
Yes, we were just talking about how we not only introduce the experimental tools, but we also measure it. And so VOA and actually MBN, we joined this year, and we will try to try out some of the interesting measurement on digital. And then we will bring the best approaches back to BBG to share.
So it's clear, and I appreciate this, that the 5 themes, the first being the rapid shift from traditional media to digital media, is really happening. What I like about it is that it's measurable. We talk about impact, and we'll talk about that later, but Brian's statistics indicate that you can actually see not only what the audience we reached, but what they did with it. Did they like it? Did they share it? That type of thing. Nenad, let's shift to the second the second strategic pillar, the spheres of influence in the world where we want to put the most of our resources. What is RFE doing in that regard, and how are you working together with your colleagues?
Well, obviously, Brian was talking about violent extremism and how to address this issue in the Middle East. But we are also engaged on the same topic in Central Asia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Russia, and of course at the Balkans. At Radio Free Europe, we are developing the project for Central Asia called Taking Islam Back, where we want to have young kids into school, high school kids actually, to face each other and open dialogue on the issue of violent extremism. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, our services played very much different role. It's a role of public service, actually, public service media. And I want to share with you a video report that we made at Radio Free Europe, Your Liberty. It was shared with our sister networks, and it was used by our sister networks. It's about interviews with Afghan children who were sold to smugglers by their poor families.
Nighttime at Kabul's main bus station. It's from here, under the cloak of darkness, that human traffickers smuggle children out of the Afghan capital. Some kids are sold by their families, who live in grinding poverty.
My mother and father sold me for 700,000 Afghanis, or $10,000, to smugglers, who handed me over to the Taliban. They trained me as a suicide bomber.
11-year-old Yahya wanted us to hide his face. Instead of carrying out his deadly mission, he surrendered himself to Afghan security forces.
The Taliban gave me a suicide vest, but I did not wear it. They said I would go to heaven, and I said, "Where is heaven? You should go to heaven." They told me that only children who die by suicide go to heaven, and that they would continue to wage jihad on earth.
On the streets of Kabul, smugglers prey upon children as young as 6. Posing as businessmen, they promise their parents a monthly fee in exchange for taking their kids abroad to work.
The children's families rarely get the money that is promised. It usually is a sign the families are being deceived by traffickers. It's possible that their kids can be abused, even sexually.
Hayatullah says it was like being a slave, and only escaped when he was arrested abroad as an illegal foreign worker.
I was missing in Saudi Arabia for 9 months. I was tortured, harassed, and beaten to the point that the 9 months felt more like 90 years. But I had to work.
There are countless smuggling routes across Afghanistan's borders. While the government recorded 170 cases of child smuggling in 2015, the number is believed to be much higher. Afghanistan only started convicting human traffickers 5 years ago.
For a long time, child trafficking was not even criminalized in Afghanistan. But thanks to our commission, it is now considered a crime.
Yahya is now in the care of the Afghan state, but he carries a heavy burden.
How can I not be heartbroken? My parents sold me and wanted me to die. What did they gain from it? My hope is that one day all the world will be happy with me.
When he's older, Yahya hopes to take a different kind of journey. He dreams of traveling to Turkey to study.
The point here is, governors, that this video was done by us, by shared and used by law by all other entities. This is the key message that I want to say. But in Afghanistan and Pakistan, we don't share just the content. We share much more. Correct, Hello?
Yes, you're right. We've been sharing transmission hours in Afghanistan, in Iran, in many other places. Here's an example. For the State of Union this year, OCB, RFA, and RFERL all preempted their regular programming on our joint stream to run VOA's coverage. BBG's audience then received President Obama's speech as he delivered it. It's a really big deal to us because it hasn't happened in the past. Now let me switch to Iran. Today is the election day in Iran. As we speak, VOA, Persian, and Radio Free Europe's Radio Farda, we're sharing coverage on this subject. They've been sharing a lot more programming in recent months. Together, we launch the news updates every hour on the hour on VOA's Persian streams. we have increased our news content in this channel for about more than 60%. This is really impressive, is it, Nana?
Yes, very much. China is also a region where our networks cooperate together, but we all agree we need to do more on that issue between Central RFA and our RFERL Central Asia Language Services. Voice of America and Radio Free Asia work together pretty closely, like VOA and Office of Cuba Broadcasting. Then the next sphere of influence is Russia, of course, and I would like just to underline that as you all know, VOA and RFERL created Current Time. It was somewhere in the fall of 2014. Daily 30 minutes Russian language news program designed for audience living along Russia borders. Current Time has also gained pretty significant audience in Russia itself. And since then, RFERL added 30 minutes daily for targeting audience in Central Asia, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan. And now we are getting ready to launch 6 hours of Russian TV3 together with Voice of America. And we already had a meeting with our affiliates, partners in Kiev. They welcome it. They are going to join us. And I can be happy to say that we lead this effort, but we can hardly do it without our colleagues from UA.
Yeah, talking about we work together, we create history on Current Time. Our focus is, of course, on America, and where RFERL's focus is on regional issues. For VOA's Russian product on America, I like to talk about the lexicon. By the way, this is Nana's favorite. It's a short digital series and designed to explain American political jargon used in election seasons. I like to see the stories called Soccer Mom.
Футбольная мама, soccer mom. В США так называют представительниц среднего класса, проживающих в пригородах, которые проводят значительную часть времени за рулем своего внедорожника или мини-фургона, разводя свое потомство маленьких ангелов.
And of course, you need to know that we plan to launch this 6-hour stream at the end of March. I hope to have actually soft launch on March 14. In Russia, it also needs to be pointed out, we increased dramatically our digital media effort by creating a digital media team in Prague. And also, it's important to say that we all now can easily exchange our content because we use the same publisher. We are all on Pangea. And I also want to underline this communication with the audience, because we are getting more and more reactions from our audience and even some videos. So I want to show you one video that had around 1.5 million views, and that resulted actually as an action among the viewers in Russia. You will see the guy whose car was destroyed, and then an audience through social network decided to collect money, and they did buy him a new car.
Ты не мужчина, да? А кто ты? Дарит тебе вот такой чудесный аппарат.
Люди прям реально, я в шоке был. Особенно друзья все там сразу кинули видео, там, давайте поможем. Там. У меня слов нет. Последнее сообщение, предупреждение мне пришло, что, в принципе, убивать они меня пока не хотят, но вот покалечить очень хотят, если я не успокоюсь дальше.
And what I want to underline, we can praise ourselves how we work together greatly and nicely, etc. This is definitely our level of cooperation has been improved dramatically, but I personally think this should be considered as a just beginning of the process. I don't think we are at the end of it.
Agreed.
Just beginning of the process. We need to do much more to address news events jointly, like today we are doing in related to Iran, or like what we are going to do in Cuba in the near future. And I need to say just one thing: it doesn't depend on governors. It actually depends on us, the 5 people who are sitting here. And I also, at the end of the story, at the end of my part of presentation, I want to share one very short video with you. It's actually a trailer for a series of interviews we just released with 12 former leaders of countries along Russia borders. Before this meeting, I gave the flash disk to my colleagues, so they have it now. And all these leaders describe lessons they learned in dealing with Russia. And with that point, I want to kind of end my presentation with this little and short trailer.
Такого я в страшном сне предположить не мог. Но я не думал, что вообще такие люди могут родиться.
Я не представляю, что бы было сегодня в балтийских странах, если не было бы НАТО.
Нельзя воевать с русскими. Ну нельзя воевать с русскими, они воевать умеют.
Тот же Киевский Майдан, репетиция была здесь в Кишиневе, только в отличие от Киева мы сдержались и не применили оружие. Путин боится двух вещей.
Если бы даже сегодня ожили сэр Уинстон Черчилль и президент Рузвельт, они бы тоже сказали, что Крым – это русский.
На его стороне сатана, а с нами Бог. Поэтому мы непобедимы.
Nenad, that was an incredible series and a great get. Congratulations on that. Very well done.
Thank you.
I assume you're distributing that on social media as well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Several times.
So, Keilu, the third theme, strategic theme that we work under is this notion of more sharing and more curation of content. Can you talk about how you and your colleagues are working on that?
Sure. Nana has shared some of the fine examples, but there are a lot more worth highlighting. So I would focus one, which is VOA's Extremism Watch Desk. It launched last September, has journalists from the Middle East, North Africa, and Southeast Asia. And what they do, they work with the local stringers who are on the front lines. They develop very unique content into English and share with entities. Oftenly, they are the first to spot trends and spot significantly developments right there. I'd like to show you a clip that is produced by our VOA Kurdish stringers, Amino Misto, in Syria.
These women fighters are singing about Kurdish victory over their enemies. The women share duties in addition to training, making meals, cleaning, and even farming. They say they miss their families, but fighting for their land is more important. They say they're fighting not only for Kurdish rights, but also for the rights of women in an equal society. For Amino Miso, this is Bronwyn Benito, VOA News.
For the time, we can just show you a little bit of the clip, but it's a very good story. The story generated heated discussions on our Facebook. And we have comments like, "Don't mess with these ladies. Salute you, brave women and brave lions. And we need more women fighters." This is just my comment, okay? Talking about more sharings, Libby and I, Radio Free Asia and VOA, have been sharing also radio's frequencies, and we recently shared satellite too. And I will let Libby to talk about our collaborations, especially in the field.
Thank you, Kalu. I was going to discuss very briefly our work together in Burma, because this was particularly critical during the opening of the Burma nation. During that transition period and continuing on now, we, RFA, took the role of helping to educate the citizenry about how to live responsibly in a democratic and more open society, while VOA was responsible for helping to teach the parliamentarians how to responsibly govern in an emergent democracy. So you can see in that arena how complementary our work streams are.
So sometimes people say, why do we have two services in the same region or the same country? But when you operate strategically, then you can have a greater impact and not really duplicating anything at all.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And then we can refer to each other so that we know that the audience gets the full coverage.
Very good. Very good. Keilu?
Yes, we have so many examples, but Libby chose the best. Now I want to focus on the curation. As we know, the curation is John's one of your 5 strategic themes. We all do curations and share some of them. I will focus on VOA's curation and how we share with each other on this front. First is on health. We produce and share a lot of health-related reports and PSAs with entities. Right now, we're doing a lot of stories on Zika, and before that, it was Ebola. And our polio and prevention and eradication is also the focus. As a matter of fact, CDC has praised the VOA's work in Nigeria, and they again praise our joint efforts with RVRL in Ukraine. Another example of our curation is on immigration. As you know, immigration is one of the biggest stories in the world now. And VOA's News Center is producing a special series called All Over the Map. The story is about people who fled war zones and started all over in the United States. And in some of the very unlikely places, our entities will add their content into this series, and the VOA then will curate that for the BBG-wide distribution, and perhaps we will do an ebook. I like to mention about another things too. Governors, you have heard many times that VOA serve as the Washington Bureau for the affiliates worldwide. But nowadays, we are doing this more increasingly for our own sisters and brothers, provide some interviews, Q&As for their usage. As you know, the policymakers, because our geographical proximities, sometimes take their time off their busy schedules, they talk to VOA. And if you can see from the upcoming screenshot, you can see that we have, for example, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, we have Senator Bob Corker, we have a lot more others. They all come to either our studio or be interviews, and all the stories are shared with the entities. This year, VOA is leading the coverage on the U.S. elections with entities. Our team is coordinating credentials, logistics, you name it. VOA also is providing much of the convention coverage for RVRL, for RFA, and for the first time for OCB. I'll let Malule talk about it.
Yeah, thank you, Kelu. Basically, one night I was here in D.C., and we decided to go out and have a dinner and talk about the synergies that we could create. And I realized by looking at our budget that we were planning to take almost 20 people to cover the elections, the conventions, et cetera. So that's when I asked Kelu, how can we do this together? How can we piggyback into your efforts? And that's exactly what we're doing. So only a skeleton crew, I would say, from OCB will go and be there with BOA, and they will support our coverage. And also, there's a slide of another program from BOA that we support with daily live shots from Miami, and our second studio will soon be finished and available for all the sister networks as well.
Well, thank you. Well, Malule, while we have you, the 5th strategic theme is measuring impact over reach, and I know you're all tired of hearing me talk about impact, especially after 2 days of it with our recent Impact Summit. But Malule, why don't you talk about impact through the eyes of OCB?
Yes. I picked basically, and I don't know if the presentation still is there yet, but I pick a quote that I think basically resumes what we did at the Impact Summit and the takeaway, the biggest takeaway that we have. And it's information, it's not power, it's only potential power. Only one thing gives you power, and that is action. As you can see on the following graphic, what results from a compelling story, it's awareness, engagement, that creates a stronger movement and eventually a social change. So that, I believe that's where we all exist. Today we have talked, and yesterday, about the Impact Summit that we had at the beginning of February. I'm going to briefly mention the work that was included there and that was so important for the networks. I mean, we evaluated our efforts, including the current impact model developed in 2015, and developing a strategy to create meaningful impact on the front end of content decisions. Developing consistent metrics across entities, I believe that was something very important as well, and identifying unique metrics for difficult regions such as North Korea and Cuba, which Libby and I can identify with the need of finding those unique metrics. And then we had agreement all around to shift our measures of success in all communication channels away from simple media reach to this newly energized impact model. So basically, we had some key takeaways from the summit. Impact is the beginning of our process. We set out to make impact. It informs how we cover stories. It is not only something we measure after the fact. Impact demonstrates our effectiveness as an organization and also is a useful tool for tracking our work internally and targeting our reporting. Impact indicators must be measured against the BBG mission, which we agree is strong as is. Networks have different markets and needs, and so we should be cognizant of that as we compile our indicators, for example, the 80-20 rule. Impact is as much about storytelling as it is about statistics. We should not only report numbers, stories, and other qualitative information. It's important too. So I have asked my colleagues from the sister networks to share examples of recent impact stories. So let's start with you, Brian.
Okay, thank you. Let me give you a quick anecdote, which I think is very, very powerful. Last November, we conducted a research project interviewing Syrian refugees in Turkey. These were people who were escaping the war and the specter of ISIS. Let me quote from the woman who participated in an extended, in-depth interview. Al-Hur's coverage of Daesh has changed my thinking. We did not know whether they were Islamist or non-Islamist. We only knew they were good. But now I've seen their execution and murder. They've moved from the normal execution to burning people. So that changed my thinking about Daesh. Al-Hur presented the topic in a logical and expressive manner. The channel showed different views of everyone on the street, not restricting their interviews to the educated economic or political class. It gives you freedom. I have not seen this story covered in a similar way in other media. So that was very, very reassuring to see something that direct.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. And Kelly, I heard you have a great impact story to tell us as well.
Yeah, my example is about VOA having impact in China. 2 days ago, the People's Daily, which is the largest circulated and most authoritative Chinese party newspaper, issued an op-ed attacking VOA. Why? VOA has been extensively and comprehensively reporting and analyzing China's new media guidelines. An article in the official Chinese newspaper defending their president against what's being said on VOA demonstrate that Chinese leaders are paying attention to us because they know that their people are consuming VOA's content. And this attack is a clear indicator of how VOA threatens to the Chinese tight media control, and we're very happy to have it.
Thank you. And Libby, I understand you have a very powerful story that you want to share with us.
Okay, before I say that, I want to point out that just the fact that the audience relies on us because they know that we will investigate the actions that are hidden by their state media is a testament to our impact. And every one of us gets sources and tips every single day, which I think really cements that impact that we give. Okay, so the example I'm going to talk about is a mining story in the Tibetan area. So the Han Chinese have been basically extracting very valuable minerals throughout this region of Tibetan Autonomous Region. And despite many, many peaceful protests, in 2011, the Chinese government said that they were going to accelerate extraction. They invested in a huge spin campaign to make it sound like, all the profits were going to be a boon to local residents. Obviously, that was not true. We highlighted the plight of the Tibetans that were harmed by the mining operations, and over and over and over again, and that led to a rare reversal. In 2014, China banned mining operations in this environmentally sensitive area where Tibetans are populated. So the authorities actually even put up stone pillars marking the area as a nationally protected natural area. So that's an example of what the power of the free press can do.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to go to my story of impact before going to Nina, that we have a great video that he's going to show. I had another story, but I changed it for a story that just happened yesterday. If we can see on the slide, the story I picked was published yesterday in all our platforms, and it's a true example of how the Martis are more relevant than ever. As you can see on this post, Candyman, who started a music movement called Cubaton, as in reggaeton, and is considered one of the leaders of the scene and capable of gathering thousands of young Cubans in his presentations, decided yesterday to challenge the Cuban government that, as he reported, is trying to silence his music and stop him from performing. He specifically chose the Marti to deliver his message, and I quote, "They asked me to declare that I did not allow that my song Grito de Paz, or Cry of Peace, be used in an audiovisual produced by the opposition group Patriotic Union of Cuba. I told them they were demagogues, corrupt, and decided to declare war on them, which in my case is through music." Candyman added that he wanted the Martis to include all of his comments and every reaction to the story since, I quote, "The state security listens to the station, and I want them to hear everything I have to say." So when the Martis are needed for the common people, activists, or agents of change like Candyman to communicate with their own government and to let everyone know the two sides of a story, that to me is not only a proof of impact, it also validates our existence.
Well done.
And now we go to a video that Nina also shared with all of us and right now 25 million views last time I checked, and they keep growing. And he'll talk about the video after we get to see it.
دلته مجرو کوم د لاک ما صبزه تا بس جل بولا لوبا دا وار ما ما
Just final comment to this outpouring of sympathy from many millions of people who watched that video that has led to crowdsourcing campaign that have already provided Ghana pair for the first time in his life. Ghana is his name, socks and pair of shoes. And as well as money that will allow him to provide a decent living for his family. In addition, the local minister for social welfare pledged to RFRL that his ministry will take practical steps to help Ghani Baba and other aged people of the province. This story, I'm happy to say, with these 25 million views, definitely helped us to reach almost 1 billion page views in 2015.
1 billion page views?
1 billion page views in 2015.
That's amazing. That's really, really amazing. Well, thank you. You've covered the 5 themes very effectively. You are one of the 5 themes just by the fact that you're sitting here working together so well, so thank you. I wanted to touch on one other area of work that we do that I think is critically important to our mission. As you know, our mission is to engage, inform, and connect. And the connect part is mostly through our Internet Freedom Program. OTF is run at RFA, and another part of that program is run here at the IBB. Governors, in the upcoming couple of next board meetings, I'm proposing that we'll bring in area experts on internet freedom for particular parts of the world. So we'll have experts on internet freedom in China in one session. We'll have one on Iran in another session, so that we can all become much more informed about this issue, because this issue is becoming more complex as the day goes on. But at the end of the day, we're connecting a lot of people to the internet, and we're protecting a lot of people from governments that would do harm to people who are trying to get on the internet, Libby. And talk about some of the work you're doing at the OTF.
Okay, so in preparing for this last night, I did a brief scan of just headlines from the last week. As we spoke about before, the Iranian elections are now, and upcoming towards the elections, we've seen so many sophisticated disruptions of the tools that the people on the ground have been using, like Siphon and Tor and others. Siphon itself had to release 8 updates just this month to try to counter this. Lantern, which is the most sophisticated proxy tool, has 1.6 million sessions on desktops and 4.6 million sessions on mobile. But the level and the specificity of the blocking and censoring that we're seeing in Iran is unprecedented anywhere. And we've never seen this. I mean, they are literally, I think, watching traffic go in and out of servers and just shutting them down. So in Uganda last week, they had an election. During the election, they banned Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp. This is a nation where 77% of the population is under the age of 30. So when they did that, they really alienated a huge population in their country. And so during that brief 3-day time, 15% of the population there that used the internet downloaded VPNs so they can continue to do their social media discussion. Now, when they asked the government, what were you thinking when you shut this down, they said that they wanted to prevent the illegal continuation of campaigning. So I'm sure none of you are surprised to know that the incumbent won, the opposition leader was thrown in prison, not unusual in our world. But this government did issue a statement saying that if you used any circumvention tool, including a VPN, you were guilty of treason. Another example is in Egypt. This was just February 23rd. One of Egypt's leading investigative journalists was prevented from boarding a plane to Jordan. He had previously been detained and interrogated for his postings on Facebook. The irony of it is that he was boarding the plane to Jordan to participate in a United Nations meeting on justice in the Arab world. I have numerous examples from Russia. Kalu talked about the new law in China, which will be effective on March 10th. The law prevents anybody that has any foreign investment from posting anything online. So unless you are 100% Chinese-owned as a company, or you are given special permission with the government, you cannot go online at all. So I just wanted to do a survey so that you understand how current and demanding the need for internet freedom work is. Now, at the BBG, we're really proud of the leadership we've shown in the entire world on doing internet freedom work. Basically, both programs really got a shot in the arm in 2012 by Congress. So we've had 4 pretty much full years of operation, averaging about $17 million a year. Currently, we are serving more than 1 trillion hits a year. Those are not page views, those are hits. We can't measure page views because a lot of this stuff has to be obfuscated for security reasons for the people that use it. We have tools that are used in 200 languages and dialects for people in 190 countries. We're managing more than 90 active projects at this time, and we support almost 3,000 developer, technologists, and others working in the space. Now, one of the things that we are very focused on is capacity building, as we've talked about, governors. And so we focus on getting technologists from every demographic coming from actually the field where the users are, because the users and the developers have to work closely together in order for something to be effective. And that's the overview that I'll give on internet freedom, because I know that we're going to be talking about it in future board meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Libby. Well done. Thank you again, everybody. And I'll toss it over to the board to see if there are any comments or questions.
Hi, thanks so much, John. I think we're all so impressed with the cooperation that's happening across entities and the efficiencies and the synergies and the increased impact that you're able to have. And I'm wondering if that's going to increase in the future, or if you think you're doing as much as you can right now. And I guess hidden in that question is there anything that we can do to remove obstacles and make that easier?
I think what you're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. I think that we are, working together really well. We get together often, and that's something that in the past was not driven, and we are so busy that we never made time for it. But this way, we are compelled, and it's great. I think we're just starting.
And I'm probably the newest in this group, but I remember being in my office with our team, telling them, BOA is going to help us with that, and they were like, oh, yeah, sure, right. So it's great now. We have the content managers having their meetings on a weekly basis, talking, discussing, and it starts, populating around everyone that this is the new way to do things. So like Livy said, this is the tip of the iceberg. There are many things. Some things will take years, I would say, in the sense that right now, like we have a lot of individual contracts when it comes to videos and things and vendors, that eventually we can have more synergy also when it comes to the resources, but it's just the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think building a trusting relationship is really important.
Yes.
As Malula and Libby mentioned about it, it goes from the top and trickle down. Our next level people are working. They meet every 2 weeks, talk about the news agenda, and keep on going down. And so the service chiefs, when they have the good stories, they got a pat on their back, and not because they just had a story, but because they share too. So we're trying to bring all this synergy together. But I think going forward, we need to focus more on the technical front, such as we should have a contracting for the wires together, so it'll be easier to share. We have some other things, but I think the most important is the spirit that we started, and we'll move very fast.
We are at the level of the content exchange. I think the next stage, from my point of view, would be if we can make good planning, have one good story being broadcast, posted at the same day in all the languages all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be big.
And their coverage, just like the upcoming visit, the presidential visit to Cuba. So that's something that BONA and OCB are working together, but that would be of interest to all the entities. So that's a good live coverage that could definitely hit all the markets.
Very good. Ambassador Crocker.
Thanks, and thanks to all of you. This is a great demonstration that truly we are always smarter collectively than we are individually. I've got a question. It takes off from Keilu's comment on the importance of technology. Our key goal, if you will, is the promotion of democracy and freedom globally. An important component of that is doing anything we can to demonstrate that women's rights are human rights, and to strengthen the empowerment of women. Libby, you mentioned yesterday, what you're doing to further the role of women in technology and in communications technology. Women are underrepresented globally, including in this country. You've taken some amazing steps, and you told me about another one today. I don't know if you've shared that with your colleagues, but I wonder if you could just share it with all of us now.
Sure. I mean, this is just one example. I think that all of us are really focusing on getting to the women audiences. Many of the barriers there are cultural, but in the Open Technology Fund, we have targeted the empowering of women technologists because they are underrepresented in the field, and more than, I would say, a lot of other industries. So when we do any event, we go and we go to the women in tech groups. We have women run hackathons and code sprints, and we actually refer developers to say, oh, so-and-so female has developed this code. You should work with her to put that into yours. So I think it's just making the conscious effort tap into women's groups. I mean, it's actually similar in some ways to one of the approaches we have at RFA on the extremist rhetoric work. You know, we're focusing on mothers. And mothers, they talk to each other in the marketplace. And if a mother can share a story about how, when her kid went off and joined jihad, how that impacted either her family and her life with other mothers in the marketplace, then they can go back to their families and say, oh, you're not doing that. So, I mean, women are so vitally important, and, you know, we have to break not only, you know, make sure our efforts are geared towards women, but that, you know, we understand the cultural aspects of it, and that we can work within those cultural dynamics to empower the women.
Governor Crocker, you're right. In general, USIM's audience, we have more males than females. So how do we attract those underrepresented audience? In a lot of cultures, men control the mediums. So in the household, if you listen to the FM, whatever, men listen to the things, then women cannot. So we have a show on the Afghan called Najiba Nashiba, where we have the women hosting the show. It's a call-in show. In the past, there again, you know, on women's issues, there are more men called. And so for a period of time, we stopped it. When the men called, we asked them, can you pass your telephone to your wife, your sister, your mother? And we forced the conversation. And since then, we have received a lot of women. They become very daring on the programs to share about multiple ideas. And I just like to share you a slice of examples.
That's amazing.
That's great.
Okay, well, thank you, ICC. Michael, Governor Kempner, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, John, and thank you to all of you. That was wonderful, and not just the work you do individually, but the spirit of cooperation and synergies that you've created is something that I know the board is particularly grateful for, and let's keep at it. We appreciate it. So any other questions from any other board members? No? So I just want to close by talking about the next board meeting is scheduled to be held at BBG headquarters in Washington, D.C. on April 14th, 2016. However, the board may need to change that date as we are working to secure a meeting with Secretary of State John Kerry to discuss a range of issues. The new date will be posted on the BBG website as soon as available, so please stay tuned. Chairman Shell works closely with his fellow governors and CEO John Lansing to develop the agenda for each board meeting. In the coming weeks, governors are encouraged to give us input regarding other topics they may like to see addressed at the next meeting. But for now, do I have any governors who wish to move to adjourn this meeting? Is there a second? Second. All in favor, please say aye. So this concludes the formal meeting of the BBG. Thank you all.
Well done. Thank you. Guys, that was just